Welcome again. Have a drink. You still decline? You do not recognize me, and I don't mean just from high school either. Didn't we meet last year when your husband was away? I believe we attended the theater in the park productions of Ibsen's Romershom. No? Well, perhaps it was somewhere else. Kalstelt or Baden Salsa, or even here upon these very sands on the beaches of Marienbad. Didn't you say you would leave your husband and we would run away together? It was only last year. I remember it distinctly. You were wearing 1961 Chanel and feathers. Have I changed so much then? Or are you pretending not to recognize me? A year already, perhaps more. You, at least, are still the same. I think of Rob Carrier. The same dreamy eyes, the same smile, the same sudden laugh, the same brusque arm, the same way of resting your hand on your shoulder. You still use the same perfume. I have an admission. I lied to you yesterday about the island body of Christ. I mean, it was not so much a lie as an omission. I did not tell the rest of the dream. I feared you might think what you might think of me. After all, my evolutionary transfiguration has been the subject of much public speculation. Certainly kept the supermarket tabloids buzzing for a while. I should never have told anyone about those DNA delivery organs. I didn't want you to think they might be right, that I am an alien freak, but I realize now that was silly. After all, that's exactly what I am. Always have been. Who knows it better than you? A short time after passing downtown Corpus Christi, we stopped at an ice cream parlor. Once inside, I tell everyone that I am handling the food purchase. Apparently this is by design and was decided in advance, part of our trip arrangements. But do you pay me, I add? But you must pay me, I add. I am standing next to a seated man from our group, and he has a complaint. You owe me money from a previous purchase, he says, but I still give you some money. He holds out a $5 bill. I decline to accept it. Since I owe you, you'd keep your money. You are taken care of. Then a man walks up behind me and begins to talk to the seated man. I do not look, but only listen. They begin to negotiate a theological transaction. I understand the item for sale is mysticism. They are very blatant, discussing amounts and prices. It is a friendly negotiation, not at all part of a seamy, dangerous theological underground. I realize they are friendly because they see themselves as part of the same club. As I listen, it occurs to me that we are visiting a foreign place where it is not illegal, or at least it is tolerated. The transaction is completed and the seated man begins to consume his purchase. I am handed a paper sack that is printed up in a colorful fashion. In this strange land, it is clearly understood by anyone who sees it to be a bag that is used for the sale of heretical theologies. The sack has a sort of stick glued to the outside. The stick is like a lighter. It is attached to the bag with a spot of glue so that the ends are unattached. On one end has been lit glowing orange with a curl of smoke rising toward the ceiling. I do not like it that I am holding this smoking theological bag. It is like a billboard. Anyone who sees it will know I am in possession of heretical theology. I decide it would be far less noticeable for me to stash the mysticism in my pants pocket and throw away the all too obvious bag. Meanwhile, the woman who is managing the place is disturbed by the sale. She doesn't want that sort of activity going on in her place, giving it a bad name. Maybe I should call the police, she says, but I'm not afraid of being arrested. I am an outstanding, responsible citizen, and the police will find I have no tickets or warrants or records of any infraction. Again, heretical theologies are obviously not a crime here. So, although the circumstances make me suspicious, I face no real legal dangers here in the body of Christ. I decide to ditch the bag in the restroom. I approach the men's room door, but I see that the woman manager has entered ahead of me. Could it be a unisex restroom, or does she feel free to use any restroom just because she works here? Then I notice the words on the door. It really is the woman's room, but the W and O are missing. I can only see the faint outlines of the letters, so I look a bit further and find the real men's room, a vast space that reminds me of the dressing room in the old Sandra Harris at Red Bird Mall, where the impoverished Oak Cliff kids conveniently relieved themselves on the carpet. Enigmatic signage. At least I got my gender properly worked out by the end. That will make the movie a lot more bankable. Although correlated with the deities, the hermaphroditic archetype is a particularly tough one to sell at the box office. Due to such financial considerations, a lot of it inevitably ends up on the cutting room floor, and even then, the reviews will not be kind. Intensely revolting. The most totally empty movie I have ever viewed from the time when I first started viewing. What's that? Why, yes, I am all about the movie. I've given up journalism. The newspaper world is dead. It no longer functions. When I was young, journalism was my calling. It was all about the truth. Now it is all about the lie. I admit that I do not yet possess even the basic tools of the cinematographer, but I can wait. The appearance of this stranger is proof that one day I will be documenting the numinous experiences of myself in the world. The movie. The stranger is obsessed with it. Turns out that in my old age I will live in a glass beach house in Southern California and take up movie making. I shall live with the sun and sand and the salt spray in my cinematic vision, indecipherable religious imagery, bleeding childhood angst, mythological expectations. I cannot fully explain my life, he tells me. It is not always about life. My life no longer functions on that level. To be sure, one half is still life, but the other half is raw, undifferentiated tissue, alien. That's why I want to make the movie. For years I have experienced my life as a sort of dream. I have always wished to be about the Odyssey, the journey. I am the 2001 Space Odyssey astronaut traveling in the divine sky clock recast as cosmic child. The deity is sending me back to Egypt, I think, to save us. Imagine this dream movie. I am Jonah, the man in the fish. We all know that it is a specially prepared fish, i.e. a visual rumor of the son of the deity. So I am swallowed up in him. The wound is inscrutable. I offer my own little interpretation. The deity showed Jonah what it is to be reborn as a cosmic child. I think I would like that role, suffering in the belly of the fish. We could do it up with soulless, cool special effects. Visual rumors of the forgotten, abandoned church with the flooded basement and the old bearded preacher withdrawn from employment in advanced death. And the tagline, am I dying? Books, movies, my own day. I simultaneously accept that the basement is flooded and not forgotten, abandoned church is me. In the upcoming age, the true Christian will be the priest of his own church, or he will not be a Christian at all. All is as it should be, I tell myself. Christ haunted about my life as the rest slumber in their beds, oblivious to the apocalypse swirling around them. Picture a scene with me staring up at the sky, looking at for signs and portents, the visual rumors, real FX opportunities here, all labeled with harsh warnings in German Creole. You have to be careful quoting them. Then a bystander tells me he is disappointed to learn that the safest way to communicate with the deity is above the concrete and rational, over the viral DNA dream phone. We are more than the real, I tell him. We have to be. The ongoing value of all this is as it should be. That's good dialogue, good writing, pretty. Would you be astonished if I informed you that I might be experiencing romantic affection again? It's true, so let's leave this place together. Let's leave behind these sculptured thresholds, lines of doors, colonnades, oblique hallways leading to deserted meeting rooms paneled in the Baroque embellishments of an earlier time, mute rooms where the footsteps are lost in sculpted Berber, so profound, so deep that one perceives no step, as if the ear itself were impossibly remote, distant and remote from this numb, barren decor, far from the elaborate frieze beneath the cornice, with its branches and garlands like dead leaves, as if the floor were still sand and gravel or flagstones, over which I advance one again, to find you between richly paneled walls, Venetian plaster, gold leaf frames, paintings, framed prints, amidst which I advance among which I find myself already waiting for you, very far from the beach where I stand now, before you, waiting again for one who will not come again, who will no longer keep us apart, tear you from me. After all that, and still you say no? How can that be so wrong? I cannot read you at all. Your face is mask-like, inscrutable, forever walls, hallways, forever doors, and on the other side yet more walls, before reaching you, rejoining you. Still no? Well then, I shall pursue another love. The new project of my desires is the woman next door. In Lancelot's case, she was the patient in the next room. In my case, she is the neighboring island. I've not observed her in the waking world, but in a dream last night, I believe I may have compelled her to commit unnatural acts upon my DNA delivery organ. Some might say that is not a good start to a meaningful relationship, but as this debasement took place near the land of the dead, I believe the physical moral code is suspended in favor of communicating a greater metaphorical truth. Is that not the beauty of true romantic affection and the visionary religious experience? Years ago, traveling with you across the vinyl black seat of the Cutlass convertible, membrane to membrane, I could say to you, I am fond of this physical response stimuli, aren't you? And you could reply, oh God, bring forth the warm gobs of ectoplasm, or something to that effect. I believe that with the woman on the neighboring island it will be identical. Last night our membranes were brought into proximity. Genetic material may have been transmitted. At the very least, I am experienced I experienced an extremely positive response to stimuli. She may have been even responded in kind. At least she did not protest. Clearly, this membrane-to-membrane encounter might have been without meaning, one dream stand, so to speak, but conversely, it may represent an authentic first contact. I awoke to find my membranes still surging, my DNA singing. It was as if I was experiencing romantic affection again, for the first time. But I am getting ahead of myself. I should start at the beginning of the end of time. This one is a 1950s B-movie sci-fi concept too, but don't get too attached to it because it's just an introduction. I never get past the opening section, which is somewhat sad but not surprising. They say every newspaper reporter has a movie script somewhere inside, and that's where most of them should stay. One summer afternoon, I accidentally decapitate a giant cicada. It is one of a pair, still young, about the size of a squirrel, that has crawled up from the drainage ditch at the back of our lot, looking for a place to shed its exoskeleton. Interrupted in the weed-choked San Augustine, the ancient mythic couple separate. One escapes through the uncut grass, splashes into the waters beyond. The other buzzes at the mower's right front wheel and disappears under the cutting deck. The engine stalls as the whirling steel blade does its work, shooting the meaty pupae across the cracked patio slab to the feet of Jack Bryson. Jack nudges the headless form with the tip of his boot. The bug does not move. He continues to nurse a watery margarita, attempting to conjure a non-existent coolness from the unforgiving shade the westering sun makes through the high, jagged limbs of the post oak next door. It's too hot to mow, Jack says. Let's go inside. In the throes of an unbroken string of triple-digit days, shade has long ago ceased to provide any real relief. I stare across a neighboring field, a lumbering combine kicking up a gritty mushroom cloud of topsoil, a dreamy moment in the shimmering heat waves. I am momentarily cast adrift, irredeemably lost in the scorching heat and torments of every day. I say, the backyard's gone unclear, or something equally metaphorical. I'm not quite sure. Jack isn't interested in metaphors. For him, August in Texas is strictly what it is, hot. He has long ago determined the best way to beat the heat is with a cool alcoholic drink and an afternoon pornographic movie, certainly not jumping out of the path of projectile insects. Great time to mow the lawn, he observes. Don't tell me you washed one of your precious vacation days on this. Wasted your precious comp time. The Keller City Council met in executive session till 12:30 last night. So how do you take this every day? Well, I don't try to mow at the hottest time of the day, like some newspaper reporter who spends his life in the air conditioning. Then Jack again nudges the remains of the insect, and I never mow over giant bugs. The cicada is only the latest in a series of poisonous insects, potentially rabid small mammals, blood-sucking reptiles, and other creatures that have recently grown to nightmarish proportions. The scientists blame it on environmental contaminants. The keepers of the deity insist it is a sign of the conclusion of time. These B-movie monsters are brave too, refusing to observe the faded neon pink surveyor's flag as the limits of their habitat. Allison picked out our home site when the subdivision was still mostly vacant lots. I had initially balked at the $5,000 premium for a canal lot, as the real estate agent called it. After all, it really was just a drainage ditch, half filled with silt and cattails, but that was in the era when I still easily succumbed to the idea of marital bliss, the novelty of love. Besides, the agent assured us the canal would be cleaned out as soon as the developers started the second phase. That was before Wichita Falls guarantee and credit. The sanctuary that financed the project was declared insolvent. Project was declared insolvent. In their final report, sanctuary regulators concluded that the institution was creatively overstimulated. And as with much of the industry today, this overstimulation is the source of the financial trouble. Clearly, the second phase of the neighborhood will be a long time coming. I tried to restart the mower, but it has flooded out. A few pulls on the starter rope and I am out of breath. Wiping sweat from my face with the grayed sleeve of my stranger's vest, 5K run t-shirt. Do you know what I've just heard? At this time last year, it was so cold that the lake froze. That's surely wrong. Too hot, I'm telling you, Jack repeats. Why do you think Mexicans take those siestas? Your Mexicans don't? Your Mexicans don't. Oh yeah? On my last spec, I caught one trying to sheet rock on empty beer bottles, to sheet rock an empty beer bottle into one of the walls. You don't pay them enough. You don't love them. You liberal journalists are going to ruin this country. Liberals and queers. Do you know how much I pay for workman's comp? Do you know what I heard from one of the old-timers? One summer it was so cold here that all the water froze, the creeks, the ponds, everything. That's impossible. Let's have a beer. You go ahead. It'll replenish your depleted electrolytes. Since I am the general contractor, I'll stick with tequila. How do you like it so far? I call it lesbian rest stop. No, this concept does not include a rest stop or lesbians. Well, maybe a few. You can't go wrong at the box office with a few gratuitous lesbians. The title was suggested by Jack. Of course, you knew he'd have to be mixed up in all of this. He also advised that the ads include the phrases, "This movie will save your marriage," and recommended by Oprah. That when I proposed the more serious title of Stranger's Rest, he shook his head. Do you want it to have a clever title, or do you want it to sell? Jack Bryson is a product of the defunct hydrocarbon age. In recent years, he was one of the few well-adjusted people I knew who were not under the care of the dental psychiatrist. But now let us speak of incredible revelations. Let us speak of cicadas. Yes, I am admittedly enraptured by my favorite movie, Let Me Love You. Why do I like it? For starters, it was made in Texas. One of the settings is Waco, which is where I was born, and some of my family still lives. Also, there is the protagonist, Clark Caring. He is the sort of minor deity, and I like him. I am periodically subject to many godlike delusions, so the real-life parallels are considerable. I am so enraptured with this epic film that I wish for you to secure the copyright. I feel it is essential to employ key scenes from this great work of the hydrocarbon age and cult classic of the drive-in movie world. Consider the opening scene. Blessings and apologies. It has been 2,000 years since my last heavenly manifestation, my beloved creations. Time gets away from you, right? I make no excuses for this lengthy delay. The blame belongs solely to me. Shame, humiliation, self-criticism. I accept it all. You won't find me trying to pass the buck. No way. I'm all about honesty. That's just the kind of God I am. What's that? Why, yes, you are right. It is hard to be me, your creator and sustainer, the all-knowing sentient being who keeps the wheels in the universe turning. And yet I do. Picture me rolling. Ah, yes, sometimes being the ultimate power in the universe is almost more than I can bear. So yeah, it's been a while since you last saw my giant disembodied head floating benevolently above you in the vast pink sky of the planet La. Sorry to keep you waiting. It is hard to be me. As far back as I can recall, I've been misunderstood, particularly by those I care about most. It seems we are always hurt by the ones we love, eh? And yet, despite the unfortunate events of 20 centuries ago, isn't it true my wrath has been generally exercised in your favor? Have I not done great things, marvelously incredible things, precisely for you, my beloved creations, who showed you how to pound your plowshares into swords, who caused your enemies to fall in battle, allowing you to sweep in and enslave their soldier drones, cart away their gold and smash in the heads of their larvae until green goo oozed from their twitching, quivering mandibles? Who did it? That's right, me, your God. So do I not deserve your exaltation and veneration? Am I not entitled to your admiration, you who I have brought into existence as citizens of the universe? And still you hurl the terrible calamity into my face. You still hold me against this one comparatively minor transgression. Oh, the terror! You wail over the burned out shells of your hives and graves of your larvae. Yes, fine. We have fully established the terror of it. I do not deny this troubled episode in the life of planet La, and yet, did it truly rise to the level of a terrible calamity? Let's be fair. Did I not cause the nuclear rain to quickly wash the fire of brimstone from the sky? Did I not employ the radioactive isotopes to create a genetic transmutation allowing you to quickly and somewhat painlessly shed your burned exoskeletons? And did I not cause new exoskeletons to grow again, albeit in a somewhat mutated form, at a greatly accelerated rate? You are being characterized by chatter. I am being characterized by action. An authentic Native American saying comes to mind: talk too much, do too few. So where would you be without me, you talkers, you beings of chatter? Where would you be without a being of action? That's right, you'd be talking too much, doing too few, you'd be nowhere. So come on, folks, enough already with the terrible calamity. Let me do my God thing, let me love you. Can't you just do that one little thing? Get out of the way and let me love you, you ungrateful six-legged bastards, you soul-sucking parasites, you... Forgive me, this sort of thing happens to me a lot. Back in the day, 4 billion years ago, I would often find myself getting carried away in the beauty of chaos. In lurid intervals of narcissistic horror, I would digress into the shattered violet neon dusk of my own atrophied human citizenship and the dazzling garbage heap of my tragic dead age. Even now, when I am like this, unpleasant things happen. The walls start bleeding. Nazi paratroopers land outside the window. Tiny white eggs on the back of my hand hatch into hungry wolf spiders, stripping the flesh from my bones. I admit it, I am a bad god. What's that? Well, there's no reason for you to agree so quickly. Okay, so let's get on with it. Since my last manifestation, some of your heretics and artists have been asking unpleasant questions about me. Some of you have been inquiring into my nature. Who is this Clark Caring? Where does he come from? Why does he do such terrible things to his creations? When will he leave? When will I leave? Well, that's why I'm here before you today. This is it, the time your heretics and artists have been waiting for these past 20 centuries. This is the end of the world. You weren't expecting that, were you? But that's the way it is with me, your God. I am the God of surprises. Only I know the day and hour of the divine apocalypse, and the day and hour is almost here. I'd like to share with you a recent essay I read on Caringism. Don't worry, I'm not preparing to hurl any lightning bolts or anything. I actually found it quite enjoyable, not a bad bit of writing. Nothing like you'd have seen back in the day from a truth doctor, of course, but a worthwhile journeyman effort nonetheless. Your creator and sustainer was proud. Then I came to the conclusion. Why does Clark Caring let the bad things happen to good people? Perhaps we have the answer in our sacred texts. A paraphrased quote from this god might read something like this. I do what I do because I am a mysterious and awesome being. Let me tell you something, you artists and heretics. I hate that. A mysterious and awesome being? You'll make it sound as if I am some sort of irrational creature, some sort of anti-deity, a monster of the id, the fiend of the unconscious. Let me tell you, my beloved creations, I am a god of love. I would not have to tell you that if only you would stop with your incessant questioning and let me get on with being me. Let me get on with loving you. Let me love you. And enough with the lowercase g already. I am not this God, but rather your God. That's God with an uppercase G, god damn it. You're treading on some mighty thin ice, my beloved creations. Have you already forgotten the terrible calamity of 2 centuries ago? Thin ice, folks, mighty thin. Picture me rolling over your thorax. That's good 1950s B-movie sci-fi. You like? See, I see. Well, it'll grow on you. Meanwhile, back to Jack Bryson. Opening the refrigerator, I am watched by a crayon cowboy affixed to the polished steel door, held tight by the mysterious magical forces of a heart-shaped magnet. The picture is a rendering of the Leach family done by Sean, the eldest of our 2 sons. We are all rendered in a classic stick figure style, just as any preschooler might draw. He's portrayed me with cowboy boots and a hat, the long, tall Texan, 6 guns blazing, one riot, one ranger riding off into a Panavision sunset. I'm his hero, I think, but what is this? My paternal pride is quickly short-circuited by a rather unnerving detail. I have been drawn without arms. I shut the designer refrigerator door with my elbow, slamming it a bit too hard, rattling jars of mustard and relish and unwanted memory. I hear the hollow slam of the tailgate of Allison's Volvo station wagon, its rear bumper disappearing around the curve at the end of the street, her fist slamming on the pantry door while I kneel in the tiny closet, cleaning up the broken bottle of juice, a phone slamming in its receiver, seeming forever. The rattled condiments rouse Missy, still locked in the laundry room. She whines in a familiar, annoying way, sort of a laughing monkey. I take advantage of her beloved owner's absence by kicking the door. Jack laughs. How long are you going to keep her in there? Until she learns to respect me. So you're free at last. They ought to be landing about now. No doubt you sensed a disturbance in the heavens. 2 whole weeks. Long enough to get caught up on my sleep. Sleep? Forget that. We're going to celebrate. Well, come on. I'm not letting you stay home. Not tonight anyway. You'll just end up sitting around in your underwear watching reruns of Star Trek. Only the original series. It was some of Shatner's best work. Jack's glance falls on the notebook I've left on the counter. Before I can grab it away, he has it in his hands, reading the title I've printed on the cover with perhaps a bit too much self-importance. The Voice of God, a memoir of dream. Ah, a little neuroporn? Naughty, naughty. No, it's just to get ideas for stories. Sleep my ass. I know you, man. You're planning to go on beam. Get down on some more dreamy pervert action. Maybe one of your elementary school teachers. You're taking that one totally out of context. I should never have let you read it. Who else would read it but me? Always walls, always footsteps. What's that crazy movie again? What movie? The one with the subtitles. Always walls, always footsteps, mute, deserted. What was that crap? Marienbad. Yeah, that's it. Subtitles. The French are full of it. Why don't they learn English? I think you are really needing in the mystic revelation trip. You should get jazzed. I groan. Someone is dead. I'm telling you, you need to buy some clock. Closed yesterday at $32 a share. But you paid $75. It's never coming back. You're crazy. Here, read this. Jack reaches into his back pocket. He retrieves a folded piece of newsprint. Something he's torn from what I recognize to be today's Hedgerow Daily. Summon seeks to repaint VI Canvas Jazz developer to promote new 4D interface Dreamwear on an open foundation basis by Puton Clans. Summon Repli Systems Inc. wants to get into your picture. The visual implant maker whose jazz technology is used in medicine for artificial retinas and plays a behind-the-scenes role in collective unconscious dreamwear and services is stepping up efforts to shape what users see on their implant canvas. In one dramatic example, Summon has been developing interface dreamwear with four-dimensional effects that are a time-twisting alternative to the familiar virtual implant metaphor of landscapes, portraits, and still life art. Summon this week will announce plans to make the interface, dubbed Clock Scam 2, along with related jazz technology, available on an open foundation basis, allowing people outside the company to view and modify the implant code used to create the program. The announcement, one of many at Summon's annual Jazz One conference in Chicago, is designed to encourage other programmers, particularly fans of the Open Foundation Mortel operating system, to adopt and refine Summon's technology. You can personalize your VI canvas, Jack says. Your young men shall see vision. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your lips have been purified by a burning coal. The wings of angels, yes, you shall hear the voice. No voice, just stories, just dreams. Thought I might do some writing while the family's away. 2 weeks, Mark. I'm not going to let you spend it all by yourself on a dreamland holiday writing your little stories inside the collective unconscious. We're going to have some fun. I don't know, I'm really tired. You're tired of being you. If I were more like you, then I would be less like me. Exactly. So take a nap, take some sacraments. I don't do that anymore. Yeah, but you'd still do it on beam. That is true. You know, buddy, Jack continues, sometimes you've just got to let your sleek dog run. I know what he means by that, a visit to Plato's palace, his favorite primal flesh temple. I'm not really sure I'm up for that level of sinning. Before I can count a suitable rebuttal, though, he points at a green digital clock on the control panel of the wall oven, a $500 designer upgrade to the builder's mid-level amenities package. Is that thing right, he asks. It ought to be. It's set to coordinated universal time. Jack just looks at me. The atomic clock Fort Collins Colo, I explain. I get it off shortwave radio. He continues to stare. What? Jack sits his drink on the counter and shakes his head. What's happened to you? He asks. What do you mean? Whatever happened to the Mark Leach I used to know, the one I grew up with, the one who dropped his pants in front of my house one night while simultaneously taking a whiz in the gutter, smoking a cigar, and playing the air guitar solo to Van Halen's You Really Got Me. The drunk and stupid one, you mean? The fun one. He lost himself, lost his way along the straight path between the immutable statues, granite slabs, where he is, and now losing himself. What the hell are you talking about? He got old, I guess. Too many trips to CC's Pizza. Too many Barney reruns. Too much the corny, wisecracking dad. I don't believe it. Anyway, I've got to go. Late again? Not yet. I'm supposed to meet my architect in Oak Cliff in 10 minutes. A 30-minute drive. I've got to pick up some plans for Dad. I thought he'd quit building, only developing now. Doing it for a friend. He had the architect incubate a Louisiana planter's cottage through the post-ceremonial dreams of the two-sect corn dancers. Stayed plugged into the exo grid for a whole week. Wow, I'd like to see those plans. Me too. I got to get over there before they goes to dinner. Have you ever been on time for anything? You sound like my ex. I've known you since, what, 3rd grade, and I can't think of a single instance of punctuality. Really? He scratches the back of his head, pretending to think. I'm sure there's been something, at least one time. No, I'd remember it. You are totally reliable in your unreliability. Okay then, I'm not seeing the problem here. I follow Jack to his truck, an electric subscription model he bought a few months back. It replaced a 4-door monster with 6 wheels and a row of orange lights on the roof. The big truck, Jack's pride and joy, was a victim of a once booming home building market recently rendered comatose by a defeated oil industry, a disastrous change in tax laws, and the collapse of the entire G&C industry. I hover outside the open window. So about 10 then? I ask. 10? What are you talking? Well, it is technically still afternoon, and it sounds like you've got a whole day of work ahead. Yeah, but don't wait till 10. That's when we're leaving. You've got to come before then. Well, I'm not going to do anything until you get there. You know that. I need you to kick me in gear. So 8 then? Don't pin me down, man. If I'm not home when you get there, let yourself in. You've got a key. Loosen up, straighten out your priorities, get your attitude adjusted. My attitude. Yeah, drink my liquor, play my stereo, screw my cat, just be Mark Leach. A confession. I didn't really run the mower over a giant cicada or any other creature of the unconscious. It was just a snake, an ordinary water moccasin, but I thought a cicada worked better for the story. Cinematic license. I love those cicadian. Whenever I consider them, I can't help but think Clark Carey and the pink skies of planet La, his world of insectoid worshippers, his beloved creations. Why does this God let bad things happen to good people? Here's a better question. Why did the Valuosity Life Planning Inc. hire a new truth doctor and give him my corner office and my parking place with my name on the curb in the basement parking garage reserved for my fellow executive? And why did it transfer me to the LET department and assign me a little cubicle to write technical documents while my Lexus LS 400 sat under the blazing Texas sun with all the insignificant cars in the insignificant employee parking lot? Let's see, one of you answer that. Forgive me, you ask a fair question. Why do I let bad things happen to good insectoids? That's a good one for your best thinkers to ponder. But so far, these past 20 centuries, they've done a poor job of it. No headway at all. Now, with the world about to end, you're out of time. So I'm going to help. I shall attempt to answer the age-old question with an illustrative story. No, not another story about how I make the lightning flash and the thunder roll. Your smart-ass scientists seem to have figured that one out for themselves. This is the true story of a different apocalypse, the last days of planet Earth. The end falls generally, give or take a few years, between the assassination of President John F. Kennedy and the attainment of eternal life for all through the superior scientific achievements of Valuosity Life Planning, Inc. and other companies in the military-industrial technostructure. You might also say that the story of the end of God, that this is the story of the end of God, which is another way of saying the end of the world. God equals world. Remember that. Without me, you're nothing, and I'm afraid you're about to be nothing. That's right, I am dying. You weren't expecting that, were you? Were you? Don't look so surprised. Even an 8-billion-year-old extraterrestrial and former truth doctor of Valuosity Life Planning Inc. has to die sometime. Anyway, this is a really good story, complete with 1950s B-movies, flying saucers, gratuitous sex, and a homicidal laptop computer. I think you'll enjoy it, but first, before the temple crumbles and everything goes up in a proverbial ball of fire, let's check God's divine mailbag. Yesterday you asked me if I ever think about Allison. As a matter of fact, I just received a letter from her, a response to my request that she grant a blurb for the trade ads of at Oscar time. You know the sort of quote I mean? Electrifying. A tour de force in cinematic storytelling, or brilliancy in a bottle. Such a simple thing to ask, really, but the news is not pretty. June 25th. Dear Mark, I received your updated letter today about your plans to call. Don't bother. We've been through this before. I will not lend my name to your movie-making scheme. I read your most recent concept, and despite rewriting key characteristics, I know precisely who you intend this character to represent. I'm not stupid. You're not fooling me or anyone else. Well, I guess you're fooling a few people, the right people, psychiatrists. How anyone can think you are not to be held responsible for what you did is beyond me. Even so, my attorney informs me I can bring you back before the judge for violating the cease and desist order. Just ask your so-called lawyer friend, or should I say your muse. God, Mark, can't you be any more original than that? Regards, Allison. Did you notice the vaguely insect-like tone of her attack? It is actually a positive development, a sign of the visionary transformation delivered via a call over the viral DNA dream phone. I filmed it in my last dream about her, standing with a group of acquaintances outside a house in some rural suggestive of the land of the dead. We have just learned that the DNA of every human on the planet has been converted to that of an insect. We feel unchanged, but I comment to those around me that the outward transformation will begin soon. The new genetic code will transform us into new beings, and sure enough, I am right. The scene changes, and I find myself standing over comatose Allison. She is nude, covered in damp dirt. I am cleaning her with a sponge, revealing the beginning growth of an exoskeletal thorax. We'll all look like this soon, I tell myself. Of course, she is really me, the insect DNA of my own blueprint, the unifying global pattern for life, and the journey. I cannot help identifying with Clark Caring, creator and sustainer of the insect-human hybrids of planet La. I have received the prophetic "Let me love you" plea from the insect aliens themselves. In the beginning, it was not easy to decode their transmissions. The messages are beamed here from distant galaxies within, crackling through flesh-covered speakers in a sort of mangled cicada cry. Over time, the interstellar translators in the viral DNA dream phone smooth out the discarded static into a comfortable, almost melodic rhythm, a poetic form suggestive of a magneto-whir of the disintegrated machine society of the West, or the dry, disconsolate rasp of buzzard wing. After the saloons of old strangers' rest stretches the desolate border zone, territory of cowboys and cattle drivers, ancestral beings trapped in astral wastelands, electronic judgments imposed through ancient compound eyeballs, the tint of washed-out gray, driving through deep east Texas piney woods, darkness, rolling on past picture-perfect peaks, through the emaciated atmosphere towards a church that stands somewhere in the east. A sense of bereavement catches in the esophagus at the vista of skinned scenery, lifeless small animals smashed in the road, and scavenger birds gliding silently above the marshes and aged tree remnants. Further on, drive-in accommodations with beautification plank partitions, chattering sheet metal furnaces, and sheer crimson bedspreads give way to an industrial sprawl of glittering retention lagoon and ginger methane flame, quagmires and trash mountains, carnivorous aquatic insects swimming about in wrecked funeral urns and metal shipping containers, glowing glass tubes and tangled 1950s roadside lodgings, stranded directors of primal goddesses and other lovely creations, cursed transitory autos from the nowhere of highway medians, ignored atoll of nonsense. Now the electronic judgments empty down in a dark rotating shaft, down from the azure heaven, the devastating, gory azure heaven of the land of the dead, home of the nameless, the dreary and ghostly, the misplaced soul nationality, obligated to become, in effect, a being without a genus. No emotion, no organization, a world-compelled, phantom-requirement, spasmodically discharging warm globule of stale ectoplasm, denotations of DNA into membranes of chilly interplanetary liberty, floating in celestial grime, departing once again without the unfilled corpse left forgotten in a back room, the vault of the deity. From silent egg to crawling larvae, from sleeping pupae to screaming mangled cicada cry of summer, this is the message of transformation that I am called by the deity to spread across the earth. Don't look so surprised. It's not as if I received my calling from an actual burning bush or anything in the outer, waking world. No, I could never accept such a literal message. This is an inner process. Magnetica, famously put it best. We cannot determine if the deity of the land of the dead are two dissimilar beings, and the land of the dead are two dissimilar beings. Each one is an intermediate notion. Just like me, here's a significant observation concerning Clark Caring's extraterrestrial insects. They are from inner space, too. These cinematic aliens are actually the forgotten spirits imprisoned within contemporary Americans. The Circadian pilot the aerial timepieces from the great beyond to the rim of our earth with the purpose of resurrecting the spirits of the comatose. Their emergence from the underground beyond is an indication of the outer incarnation of our inner alienation. So we needn't resist the transformation. Rather, we should just arrive to revive our own self, even as we know that the self we seek could be a sham and our revival an extraterrestrial conspiracy, or something to that effect. What's that? Oh yes, I'm aware of what Allison's parents have been saying about me in the press. Clearly they fear that for their daughter and grandsons. Imagine it, Allison, a jewel charity debutante married to a murderer. So misguided, so sad. Besides, there are so many people upon whom we could lay equal blame. Plenty of stock characters in this movie. There's a mad scientist, Dr. Adolfo Morel, the power-hungry billionaire industrialist William Dollar Bill Buckstop, the hive leader in Circadians, aka Bellero Shield. Still, I remain everyone's favorite villain. Perhaps I should have done more to save Jack and the girls, more to save the world, but how? Alas, such an outcome is not in script.